The ocean of the Pacific was vast, merciless, and waiting for a weapon that could dominate the horizon. Before World War II, battleships ruled the seas, but the sky was about to change everything forever. When Pearl Harbor burned, America realized that air power would decide the future of naval warfare. Out of urgency, steel, and vision, the Essex-Class aircraft carrier was born. These ships were not designed for peace, but for survival in the most brutal ocean war in history. Each Essex-Class carrier was a floating city, alive with engines, fuel, steel, and human courage. They were longer, stronger, and more adaptable than anything that had come before them. Engineers knew the Pacific War would demand endurance, repairability, and overwhelming air power. The Essex design allowed rapid construction without sacrificing combat strength. Every rivet, deck plate, and elevator was built with battle damage in mind. Unlike earlier carriers, Essex ships could absorb punishment and return to fight again. Their flight decks became launching grounds for vengeance after Pearl Harbor. Young pilots climbed aboard knowing the ocean below offered no mercy. From dawn launches to midnight recoveries, the Essex carriers never slept. They carried fighters, bombers, and torpedo planes that would rewrite naval history. As the war expanded across islands and atolls, the Essex-Class followed relentlessly. They struck enemy bases, shipping lanes, and airfields with surgical precision. Japanese defenses learned to fear the sound of approaching carrier aircraft. Every mission pushed deeper into hostile waters. Damage control crews trained for fires, floods, and explosions as a daily routine. Even when hit by bombs or kamikazes, Essex carriers refused to sink. Steel burned, decks shattered, but the ships survived. The Pacific War was not won by one battle, but by relentless pressure. And the Essex-Class was the hammer delivering blow after blow. These carriers did not just support the war effort, they became the war effort. As the war intensified, the Essex-Class carriers sailed closer to enemy shores. Each mile forward increased the danger from submarines, aircraft, and suicide attacks. The Japanese turned to kamikaze tactics to stop the unstoppable. Pilots aimed their planes directly at the flight decks of Essex carriers. Explosions tore through steel and flame raced across aviation fuel. Yet the Essex design proved brutally effective under fire. Armored decks limited damage that would have crippled older carriers. Redundant systems kept engines running even when sections were destroyed. Damage control teams became heroes. Sealing compartments and fighting fires. Aircraft were pushed overboard so flight operations could continue. Within hours, bomb carriers were launching planes again. This resilience shocked enemy commanders. The Essex carriers did not retreat after taking hits. They adapted, repaired, and returned stronger. By 1944, Essex-Class ships formed the backbone of the Fast Carrier Task Force. This force moved like a storm across the Pacific. It struck Saipan, the Philippines, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. Enemy fleets were destroyed before they could even see the carriers. Air superiority became absolute. Battleships became escorts rather than kings. The Essex carriers projected power hundreds of miles beyond the horizon. Pilots trusted their ships with absolute faith. They knew that no matter the damage, their carrier would still be there. As Japan's defenses collapsed, the carriers moved closer to the mainland. The war's end came not with one final battle, but with total exhaustion of the enemy. The Essex-Class had proven air power could conquer oceans. But their story was far from over. When peace arrived, these ships did not retire. They evolved. After World War II, many warships were scrapped and forgotten. The Essex-Class carriers were given a second life. Jet aircraft demanded stronger decks and new launch systems. The Essex ships were rebuilt, modernized, and upgraded. Steam catapults replaced older technology. Angled flight decks transformed carrier operations. Once again, the Essex-Class adapted to a new era. They served during the Korean War, launching jets into combat. They patrolled Cold War seas as symbols of deterrence. Some became anti-submarine warfare platforms. Others trained generations of naval aviators. Young pilots learned carrier landings on ships built for World War II. The roar of jet engines replaced propellers, yet the steel beneath their feet remained the same. Decades passed, but the Essex carriers endured. They proved that great design transcends generations. These ships were not just machines. They were schools, fortresses, and homes. They carried the legacy of those who fought and died on their decks. Eventually, Time caught up with even the toughest steel. The Essex-Class retired quietly, one by one. Some became museums, others became artificial reefs beneath the waves, but their influence remains alive in every modern aircraft carrier. From the Pacific War to the Cold War, their shadow still stretches across history. They were not the biggest carriers ever built, they were not the most advanced by today's standards, but when the world needed strength, flexibility, and survival, they delivered. The Essex-class aircraft carriers did not just win wars, they changed naval warfare forever.